What's up, y'all? I hope y'all having a blessed day. I'm hanging in. I recently ran across this story about another devil's reject. She goes by the name of Tiffany Moss. She was recently sentenced to death for fatally starving her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Emani Moss. Emani is a little angel. When I first saw this story, I thought that Tiffany had to be in some way mentally ill or mentally incapacitated to commit a crime such as this. But after I did a little research, I'm concluding that she's just plain old demonic. So I'm going to share some clips with you about the facts surrounding this case, and then I'll come back and share my thoughts.
The body of 10-year-old Emani Moss was found inside a trash bag in 2013, starved to death and burned. Tiffany Moss facing the death penalty and has decided to represent herself at trial.
In 2010, Tiffany Moss beat Emani with a leather belt so badly she had welts all over her body. For this incident, Tiffany received 5 years probation, and she also lost her teaching job. Department of Family Services removed Emani from the home, but she was later returned after Tiffany completed anger management and in-home counseling. So at this time, Emani was homeschooled and therefore left alone all day with Tiffany while her father, Emani Moss, was at work. In the years that followed, Tiffany Moss deliberately starved Emani as punishment. The abuse got so extreme, Emani would often run away and sleep outside in the bushes to escape her stepmother. In my opinion, I think Tiffany targeted this child because in some sick, sadistic way, she viewed Emani as a representation of Emani's past relationship with another woman, and she hated Emani for that. So much so that she was able to torture and dispose of this child with no qualms about it. On October 24, 2013, her father returned home from work and found Emani unresponsive in the bathtub. He placed her in the bed and she died several days later in her own filth and waste. She was denied food the entire time. After Emani died, Moss and her husband Emani Moss doused her body with an accelerant and set her on fire outside of their apartment in an attempt to cover up their crimes. Authorities found 10-year-old Emani Moss's body in a trash can on November 2nd, 2013. She weighed only 32 pounds.
Emani was nothing. She was a nuisance. She was ugly. She was nothing. She was a pain. She was disposable. She was trash. She was trash. But she wasn't. She wasn't. She was a child. She was a daughter. She was Emani. She was Emani. And she mattered.
Emani Moss is already serving a life sentence after pleading guilty in 2015 for his role in his daughter's death, and he testified against his wife in accordance with his plea deal, detailing the weeks leading up to his daughter's death and the moment they realized she was dead. So in his testimony, Emani told the court that Tiffany said that they can't call 911 and they shouldn't hide the body. Tiffany was still on probation for an earlier abuse charge and was scared she would lose custody of her 2 biological children. So they kept Emani's body in their apartment for several days while they figured out their next move. What is especially significant is the fact that Tiffany did not starve or abuse her biological children. So in my opinion, she was fully aware of what she was doing. Emani also stated that his wife wanted to bury the 10-year-old. He went to Home Depot and bought a galvanized trash can, trash bags, charcoal, and lighter fluid as part of an attempt to cremate her body. But eventually he called police because he was unable to live with the guilt. This is a little snippet of Emani's testimony.
While you were at the police department, did you find out that your wife had been accused of beating your child?
Yes, when I got down there.
And did you give a statement to the police in that regard?
Yes, I spoke with the detective.
And did you become aware that she was eventually arrested?
Yes, she got arrested there.
And do you know whatever happened with that case?
She took a plea of probation, 5 years to my knowledge.
Tell me what life was like after that at your house.
It was rough.
Was Tiffany allowed to work as a teacher after that?
No.
Did Tiffany ever work after 2010?
No.
So, what did she do?
Stayed at the house.
Stayed at Pearlie's house?
Yeah. Wherever we were living, she stayed at the house.
Right. Did you feel like her job at that point was to take care of the kids?
Yes.
Did you ever see any problems between Emani and Tiffany while you were at Pearlie's?
Yes.
Tell me about those.
Ever since going back to 2010, ever since then it was like a love-hate relationship.
Tell me, explain to the jury what you mean by a love-hate relationship.
You know, her and Monty was like it was always something, they couldn't get along.
Is sending to bed without their supper a way of disciplining a child?
No, that's not.
Is putting him in a corner and putting him in timeout a discipline for a child?
Yes.
You said that Tiffany didn't discipline Emani. Are you aware of whether or not she used any of the other things other than a spanking to correct her behavior?
Yes, after well, let me go back. When we had the incident where she spanked Emani in 2010, we had to take a class. I took it called the Fatherhood Program, and I think she had to take anger management, and then we had in-home counseling. Because at the time, I was not aware of the other form of discipline, because, you know, I grew up from the old school. You know, you got a spanking, and that was it.
Did Emani ever live with your mother?
Yes, during the incident in 2010.
And after that, was Emani placed with your mother?
No, sir.
Well, how did she end up over there then?
You said at my mom's house?
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, how did you get in 2010, we had the spanking incident. Tiffany spanked Emani. She had whips and stuff all on her arms and back, I think legs, a belt whip.
But how did the question was, how did she end up staying at your mother's house after?
Defects. We moved her out of our home and put it with grandma.
And how long did she live with grandma after the 2010 incident?
I want to say 6 months.
Did you ever talk to your mom about Emani staying with her?
Yes, I have.
And how did you feel about that?
I didn't really mind.
Right. But I'm talking about after 2010. Did your mom ever ask for Emani to come and live with her?
Yes, she have.
And what did you say to that?
In my pride, I said I was trying to prove something to my mom that I can do it, and I said no.
Tiffany Moss did not mount a defense at trial, nor did she make a closing argument. I believe that Tiffany was very calculated in this situation, and she knew that she would be found guilty and wanted the death penalty.
There were people in that courtroom for Emani. Her grandmother was there, her grandmother who tried so many times to get custody of Emani. Her aunt was there, her 4th grade teacher, who gave the most heartbreaking testimony saying she would never forget Emani's beautiful smile. But this entire time, Tiffany Moss didn't say anything about Emani. She didn't say anything in her own defense. And it was something that even the judge found peculiar. Doug Richards was also in the courtroom today, and the judge talked about this.
Well, yes, that's true. He did, Caitlin. And you know, Tiffany Moss has really thrown herself on the mercy of the court in a most unusual way. She has declined to mostly question jurors, mostly declined to make any motions, to even offer any cross-examination of any of the prosecution's witnesses against her. And today she made no arguments on her own behalf. So after the after the verdict was reached, the judge in this case, George Hutchinson, all but pleaded with her to mount some kind of defense during the penalty phase.
Ms. Moss, I feel compelled to mention that, of course, you've decided not to present any evidence in mitigation. There are certain things that I want you to make sure that you've given some consideration to. Certainly, ma'am, you could testify in your own defense and present mitigating evidence, talk with the jury, describe for them what it is that you think that they need to know in fairness about you, your circumstances, or anything else connected with this crime that should be a consideration for them as they decide what the appropriate penalty in this case might be.
District Attorney Danny Porter in open court today opined that Moss's defense actually might be effective in its own unusual way, and we will have more on that tonight at 6. Back to you.
This is the jury's verdict in case 18B 1541-1, State of Georgia versus Tiffany Nicole Moss. Count 1, findings of jury as to alleged statutory aggravating circumstances. We, the jury, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense of murder as alleged in count 1 was outrageously or wantonly vile, horrible, or inhuman in that it involved torture of the victim before death. We, the jury, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense of murder as alleged in count 1 was outrageously or wantonly vile, horrible, or inhuman in that it involved depravity of mind of the defendant. Signed and dated by the foreperson.
Tiffany Moss was found guilty on all 8 counts against her, and that included malice murder, felony murder, first-degree cruelty to children, and concealing the death of another for her repeated abuse of Emani Moss. Tiffany Moss will be executed. Yes, she deserves to die, and I hope she burns in hell, in my Samuel Jackson voice. The jurors found her acts to be vile, horrible, and inhumane, and I think that just about sums it up. I believe Tiffany was fully aware, fully cognizant of her actions and abuse towards Emani. And we can see that in the fact that Tiffany had 2 biological children that she didn't treat that way. So she was very purposeful in what she was doing, and she thought that she was going to get away with it. If it wasn't for Emani finally confessing, and that is his only redeeming quality because he failed his daughter in every way. I believe he was mentally ill, but he was complicit. He was doing Tiffany's bidding. I do think that Tiffany was able to manipulate him and use him as a pawn, but it's no excuse. Emani failed his daughter. I actually think that the death sentence is too good for her. I think it's too lenient of a sentence. I think what she really deserves is to rot in that prison cell for the rest of her life and suffer in the same way that Emani did. But I'm not a juror. So guys, let me know what you thought about this case. Do you agree with me? Do you feel that the death sentence is too lenient for Tiffany? Do you think she deserves to rot in prison for the rest of her life? Let me know down in the comments. Emani, I hope you are resting peacefully. Guys, I will see you next time. Peace.